Hello, good people of the internet. My name's Andy, and you're watching Geek Curio. And on today's show, I am joined by a very good friend of mine, Shaun Sunday. Shaun, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. Tired, chilly, motivated, and good.
And you're down under in Australia at the moment, so we were just talking about
Yes.
weather, and you're going through your winter while I'm going through my summer at the moment. But still, it feels like Australia is hotter than the UK.
It could actually be, I wouldn't be surprised. Um, I'm going to have a look right now and tell you. It's 21 degrees outside.
Well, it's early morning here in the UK, and I believe I am on. Sorry, I've actually turned my weather widget off, which is silly because British people love talking about the weather. We're looking at 11 at the moment. However, it's likely to be about 28 later on today, I
Yeah.
reckon. So, but
Yeah,
like,
well, yeah, it's 5 o'clock at night here, and it's 21 degrees, and that gives you an idea of what a Brisbane winter is like.
I'm no the idea of a Brisbane summer absolutely terrifies me now because I don't do very well in the warm. I just melt.
Yeah, well, lucky last summer that we didn't catch on fire again, so.
Yes, that's very true actually. Um, Shaun, obviously, I know you from YouTube, but we also know each other from Goblins of Mordor as well. But you have seem to have your finger in all the pies. You do YouTube, you do Twitch, you do Kickstarters, and you have your own company and you write your own adventures. So, but first of all, if you could tell me, how did you get into the whole role playing and D&D shebang in the first place?
All right, so honestly, I started with Hero Quest.
Oh, same here.
I got given a secondhand copy from my brother-in-law when I was like 14, and I played that at school with my mates. And I was really into the R.A. Salvatore books and stuff before I knew that they were anything to do with D&D.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I,
you
I
love the
read
Drit series.
all of them. Yeah, I read them all when I was a kid, and then I got excited playing like Baldur's Gate and stuff like that to know that Drizzt was in them, but I didn't actually pay attention to the fact that it was D&D
Mm-hmm.
back then. But it wasn't actually until I started designing miniatures for HeroQuest and started paying attention to the D&D community as a result that I was like, well, you know what? D&D people are seeming to pay attention to the things I'm doing right now. I should probably actually look into D&D and maybe have a crack at it. So I picked up a starter set, and the rest was history.
Excellent. Excellent. And like we touched on a little bit earlier, you've got a Kickstarter out already, and I remember we were speaking yesterday, and it was funded in 10 hours. So first of all, well done, mate. Can you tell us about the Kickstarter? Because I was actually, when you sent it over
Um,
to me, I was like, why hasn't anyone thought of this before?
yeah, I can. Hang on, let me just grab this.
Oh, excellent. We're going to
Handy
check it out
dandy.
live.
Here's one I prepared earlier.
Excellent.
Um, so yeah, thank you for the congrats. It was super exciting. We launched it at brunch and it was funded by dinner. I was literally cooking dinner when I got the message from a friend who was keeping an eye on it. I had checked it 30 seconds beforehand, and then I got a text message going, funded.
Excellent.
So that was amazing. We thought we might get first day, but we're prepared for first 48 hours.
Yeah.
But under 12 hours was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it. But what it is, for anyone who isn't already familiar with me, is it's a player screen. Um, I've got it set up so it can help players like myself. When I started learning and my partner and I started learning, we're all neurodivergent, ADHD, autism, anxiety, and stuff all through our group. And that comes with a whole host of memory issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I was learning how to DM. They were learning how to play. I was learning how to play and also learning how to play so that I could learn how to DM and guide them through the game in the process.
Yes.
And we tried all kinds of cheat sheets and stuff like that. And they didn't work for us because, unfortunately, ADHD comes with a thing called object impermanence. Out of sight, literally out of mind.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't see that cheat sheet in front of me at all times, I'm not going to use it because I just completely forget it's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought, oh, well, DMs have got a screen. Surely there must be a thing. And hit drive through RPG, looked up player screens, couldn't find anything but sheets to glue on the other side of your DM screen.
Which were cheat sheets essentially.
Yeah, and I looked at those and I was like, okay, so that's good for the two people sitting next to a DM. But if you've got a group of 4 or 5 or maybe 6, they're not going to be able to read that from the other end of the table.
No. No.
So I started knocking together a concept for a player screen and sent it to a few friends, and I'm like, oh my god, I want this. You need to make this. Please finish this and send it to me. And so that was the version 1.0, which is this one right here. So
Yes.
I've got mimic art all around the outside. The first panel is an on your turn, so it's just a bit of a reminder of all the different actions you can take.
Yes.
And also to try to do anything. You know, it's a game, so get creative and just ask your DM if you could do something. They'll say yes or no, but you won't know unless you ask.
Yeah, I've played games where people have actually said they're actually going to do nothing because they weren't thinking outside the box, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, a big part of why I designed this way is because having that information handy means that you don't have to think about it while you're playing and be holding that information in the head instead of thinking about things that you would like to do.
No, I
So
totally get that. Oddly enough, yesterday I
yeah.
was actually playing D&D. My DM is on holiday this week, so the remaining players and I put together a one shot. And my biggest problem is actually making characters. I've got a brother-in-law
Yep.
who we call Christopedia because he just knows everything about the books. So we got him to make characters for us. And I was playing a druid cleric, and I'd never played those before. So this sort of thing would have come in really, really handy because if I remember correctly, I was actually applying certain effects like staggered. There's another one which begins with R, and I'm probably gonna
Restrained.
Restrained. That's it. Restrained was a big one, and I'm assuming stuff like that would be on the back of a player sheet as well, because I know it's on the. There we go. See, so obviously I even need this just for me to do the interview because the conditions are all there. That sort of thing.
Yeah, and this one I've got in my hands right here actually is not the finished version. This was the first prototype we got made up.
Yeah.
But I've got the finished version up here in the background. So on this one, in the important information, you can see that it's only got one row for death saves and stuff like that.
Yes.
Actually, that was changed for the final version. It's got 2 rows of death saves and successes. And on the new version, the leveling guide actually stops at level 10.
Because
Because
one really.
you don't really need it. By the time you get to level 10, you're usually playing Milestone now.
Yeah.
And so I actually halved that, and then I moved the leveling guide down to fit this little dice tower in that spot.
I can kind of see it. That's
Yeah,
cool.
it's a little mini DM screen dice tower that my friends at Glowcraft make, and so we teamed up to include them with the player screens now. And where the top half of the leveling shield was now is a little scroll that says, "May the dice be ever in your favor," and that's where the dice tower sits.
That's really useful as well because, like I say, it's summer here in the UK, so we actually played out in the garden. And my house, I've got a big garden, but I don't have a huge giant table to have maps and books and everything on. So we pretty much were working from our laps, our knees, so to speak. So
Yeah.
something like having individual dice towers would be fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I thought. Why I made that room for that, because it just hooks on.
Yeah.
And sits on top of your screen. And the final version comes with this little diagram of all the dice for people who might not be able to remember exactly which dice is which all the time. They can just quickly look at the screen and grab the same one from the table.
Yeah, I end up getting confused with my D10s and my D12s, despite the fact they look different. I will actually pick up a D10 and start counting them, looking for the highest number just to make sure that I know it's a 10 and not a 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
What you mean,
And on the new version of them, I've made the dice a nice turquoise color, so they stand out even more against the screen.
Excellent.
And for the conditions page, on both the one that has already been out and the new version, the conditions are alphabetized. And they're not on the official DM screen. That tripped me up every time I tried to look up a condition when I was first learning how to play, they're not in alphabetical order. So I'd have to just pore over it for a minute trying to find the condition that I wanted. And so for the player screens, to make it easy for people like me,
Hmm.
I alphabetized them and I summarized the language a little bit so it still says the same thing, but it doesn't take as long to get the information.
Yeah, and that's pretty much a well-known thing about D&D. It's interpreting it. The amount of
Yeah, I
times,
found that a lot of the descriptions can be a bit wordy,
yeah,
which when you're trying to remember something on the fly, you just want to, it does this and you can't do this kind of
yeah,
description.
what you can and what you can't
And
do.
which is, yeah, so I summarized all the conditions into that. Like the creature affected can't move, can't talk, and has disadvantage on deaths on dexterity saves.
Hmm. That,
Just nice and crisp and simple, and then alphabetize them. And for the new version that's on Kickstarter right now, all I did to change those was update them to match the latest version of the SRD. Because with every Unearthed Arcana and stuff like that, things get tweaked a tiny bit.
yeah.
Um, and there were a couple of small tweaks to make, very minimal actually. So the conditions descriptions haven't changed that much, which is great. But I did just have to add 1 or 2 lines to a couple of them, and then that's it. All good.
Yeah, like I say, the things like conditions and the stuff that's on the back of the screen now, are the things that, if you're using a new spell that you hadn't come across before, which would actually cause something to happen, it does help speed up the game. I mean, one of the things that I get frustrated with is the number of times that people will flick through the book to make sure something, and then once again open to interpretation. So no, I absolutely love this idea.
Yep,
I
and that's exactly why I made it, because like a lot of new players, and also again neurodivergent players, feel really anxious about having to pull out the big book at the table. And so I wanted to make sure that it contained information that was going to be relevant no matter what level you were playing,
hmm
no matter what race you were playing, no matter what class you were playing. It was just, no, any player will always be relevant to the information that I've got.
No, it's excellent and something that I need. I think I definitely need this for, especially when I'm switching characters. I mean, like I say, I don't consider myself a new D&D player. I've been playing properly since fifth came out, but I have played in 3.5, etc. Um, but
I started with 5th in 2018.
yeah, so yeah, I say I've probably got a couple of years over more than you, but this is something that I need. So definitely.
Yeah, and then that's it. I've had so many old school players going, "Oh man, I would love this," because there is just so much to remember, and you can't really control what your brain chooses to remember.
Hmm.
So if you're someone that loves playing wizards, you might remember a bunch of the rules about spellcasting, but you might not remember the basic rules of everything that you can do any other time, whether you're casting a spell or not.
No,
And
absolutely.
so a lot of people have said that, yeah, this is really helpful because I've been playing for so long now, I've kind of forgotten half of this basic stuff. And I always forget to do that one thing that's on the screen. So,
um,
that's what it's there for.
Other than doing Kickstarters and writing your own adventures, you also have a YouTube channel and you also have a Twitch channel as well. So you've been doing some D&D streaming, some live play, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah. I 2020 was a lot of one shots,
Hmm.
which was really fun. And this year I tried an ongoing show for the first time, which I have had an absolute blast with. I got some really wonderful sponsors to support it, which was really cool. I did end it early because one, the Kickstarter was coming up, and I wanted to focus on that. But the way that this adventure runs, I'm planning to finish writing it and getting it ready for publishing because the first episode, I got so many comments going, "Is this going to get released on Drive-Thru? Is this going on DM's Guild? I want to play this." So, like, all right, well, why don't I stop for a bit, take the time to write it properly, and then that'll actually make it easier for me to DM it as well. Because from episode to episode, I was creating new maps and new magic items and everything for this once a month show, and it was taking a lot of time. So, like, no, I'm going to stop. I'm going to write the whole thing from top to bottom, get all of my digital maps set up, all of that stuff, and then come back strong next year for another season. Book all the people in that I had for this season, and then book a few more people in because I'll need to fill out the back end.
Hmm.
and go again. But that show was so much fun because it was a game show. It was D&D meets Takeshi's Castle.
Yes.
It was funny, it was dangerous, and the players were always paranoid by the time they got past the third level, and I had a blast. I had Bill from Beetle and Grimm's pop into the last episode, actually.
Okay.
He played a survivor that had just escaped the tower, and the players met him outside on the grounds, and he gave them all of these dire warnings about things that they might potentially see inside, and they were too scared to touch anything for an hour. It was great.
Excellent. Excellent. And is this an entire setting that you've met yourself? It's not set in Forgotten Realms?
Yes. No. It's called the Shifting Spire.
Uh-huh.
And it's set. I'm actually going to start connecting all of my one shots together into a greater setting. So there'll be references to the Shifting Spire in my 2-hour one shot, The Hunger of Furze Peak. And then there'll be references to the town of Furze Peak in the Shifting Spire and stuff like that. So it'll be a greater universe. Don't know if it'll be necessarily a setting specifically, but it is going to be a shared universe. But the Shifting Spire is 10 stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it never plays the same way twice.
Hmm.
So I've got 30 different versions of 30 different maps. So 3 different versions of each of the 10 floors, which means that there can be 120 different combinations.
Wow.
And so the DM can just, from group to group, even if there's somebody else that's already played, they can just shuffle them up and draw from the pile.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I'm writing it is very different to your traditional D&D campaigns. It's played as D&D, but it's written almost more like a Hero Quest campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the map. Each room is lettered, and then on the map sheet, there's at room A, this, and this happens. These things are in the chests.
Yeah.
Room B, this, and this happens, and there's a trap in this corner. And that sort of thing. So it's a framework, and the bulk of everything else, and leaves a lot of role play and all that stuff open to the group. But the DM can do whatever the hell they want, but they know the core things about. There's this many monsters. Here are the stats for that monster, and there are this many magic items or treasure pieces in there, and this trap is here, and here's the stats for this trap.
And so, will this be coming out on Drive-Thru RPG or
it will. It will probably end up being a Kickstarter as well. It'll come out on Drive-Thru first.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a couple of other Kickstarters that I'm probably going to do between this one and the Shifting Spire, which are smaller projects. But I will probably take it to Kickstarter to do a print version, which will include printed maps and that sort of thing as well.
Excellent. And the question I've been dying to ask for a while, just over your left shoulder, you have a beast there, a brain beast.
Yes.
So can you tell us about that? Because Brain Beast is the name of the company that you're working with.
It is. It was named after Brian and also my ADHD. So this is Brian the Brain Beast. And Brian was the first paper mini that I ever designed. And as soon as I started designing the paper minis, I teamed up with a 3D artist for a little bit and commissioned him to make 3D models of all of them that could be printed as Hero Quest minis. And then that translated over into the D&D community as well. And because I had my own 3D printers and things, I realized I could hollow this out and make a big one. And so I split it into pieces and printed a life-size one to be our studio mascot. And then I was hunting for 3 years almost, trying to figure out what identity I wanted to have as a professional and a publisher that incorporated all of the different things that I do, because I'm not just in TTRPGs, I'm in comics, I'm in board games, comics media, I write comics, I draw comics, I'm designing 2 different board games that aren't RPGs, they're all on the back burner in different stages of development, so I didn't want to necessarily limit myself to something very, very specifically D&D exclusively themed. And then because Brian was our logo, it just came to me one day. I was like, fuck, all right, Brain Beast Studios it is.
And is that your actual brain?
No, it's not. It's a random brain. I wish I had a scan of my brain that I could turn into Brian, but that would make it just an extra level of meta.
No, well, my friend actually who big into 3D printing started jogging at the beginning of the year, and after his first jog, he fell over and cracked his head open. But it meant he had to have an MRI, and
Yeah.
he did what we call a subject access request and managed to get an STL file of his brain, which he converted and printed out at 40% size.
Yep.
Which is
That'll do it. Yeah,
I'm
if
not
I ever have to
suggesting
get
that you go and jump on the pavement or anything.
No, but if I do ever get an MRI, you can bet that I'll be getting that model.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. So you've mentioned about comics and illustrating. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well, please?
Yeah, for sure. This book right here, actually, it's got my first published comics work in it. It's written by a good friend of mine, Frankie White. It's called Project Starless Daydream.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an anthology comic. So there were, I think, 34 different artists in total.
Yeah, wow.
And we each got 1 to 2 pages for the book. And there's some phenomenal talent in here. Simone Regazzoni from the Boom Studios Power Rangers comics, Liana Kangas, Fellhound, Minerva Fox, myself. It's such a cool book. Like, this spread right here is just bonkers.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and it's billed as the finale to a mecha anthology that never existed. And this is my page.
Oh wow, love the artwork.
Yeah, so this was my first published comics work. I've been working with friends to get a few mini scripts and things like that, and filling out my folio. For a while there, I was focusing on other things like my D&D projects and my tabletop game projects, and just general art pieces and stuff like that, and was just wall to wall busy all the time. And now finally, with that project, was like, no, I'm going to stop and actually finish a comics project. And so at the moment, I'm working on another mini comic written by a friend of mine, Ryan Lindsay. Look him up on Comixology.
Okay.
Ryan K. Lindsay. He does just the best work. I love every single one of his comics. So I was thrilled. It's been way too long because it's just a practice project. It's a project I have to keep putting down and picking back up when I have spare time. It's only 3 pages, but I've been working on it since 2019. But the thing was that I started the cover, got the pencils done on the cover, and then immediately started a degree at university. And so that took priority all year.
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, when we decided this degree's not for us, I started working back on it again, and then had a crash and lost all of the work that I'd been doing.
We're talking computer crash, yeah?
Yeah,
Right.
my tablet crashed,
Oh,
and I lost all the save files. And then I sort of got discouraged for a while, and then eventually I got motivated and found some screenshots that I'd sent to Ryan of those early pages, and was able to start fresh from those screenshots, trace over the rough work that I'd already done, tweak it and improve it where I felt that I needed to, and was able to keep going from there. So at the moment, I'm halfway through inking it, and then it'll take me a week or 2 to get the colors done. And I've got a letterer sorted out, and then that's going to get shared on Twitter for free for everyone because it's just a quick collab. I'm collaborating with the Minerva Fox that I mentioned before on a 2-page Mothman comic soon.
Oh, cool.
It's kind of it's a 2-page dramedy about Mothman.
Similar to the urban legend.
Yeah, that Mothman.
Yeah.
Yep. It's called The Mothman Moves.
So,
and I'm actually launching my next Kickstarter after this one is going to be for my mini comic. It's 10-page short right now, and it's sort of the intro to a greater graphic novel that I'm going to be doing called The Network Man. So it's a 10-page retro-futuristic sci-fi story, and it's like a spy story. The main character is Teddy Valentine, and his partner in the field, Cable Chanel, but everyone mispronounces it as Channel. And the villains are the M.U.R.O. No, hang on. M.U.R. M.D.O.K agency, Murdoch, and their prime agent Fox Newsom and his handler Karen Baggage.
Karen Package.
So it's not going to be super serious, but it is going to be a good fun time. I've written the treatment for that already. Once I'm ready to do the Kickstarter, I'll start scripting it out fully, and I've got an artist lined up for that. So that's going to be the next Kickstarter after the player screens. It's going to be a much smaller one too. I only need about $1,000 to make that.
Okay.
But having a part-time job, I don't have $1,000 to drop on a comic.
No. The next question probably would have been, when do you ever find time to sleep? But you got so many projects going on. It sounds amazing, and yeah, I'm absolutely well done, and also well done on the Kickstarter. But for my final question, what would you recommend? How would you what would you recommend someone who's wanting to get into the whole role playing games, and where would you suggest they start?
Well, I would start before you buy anything. Find out if you have any friends that play and what they play first, because I love D&D. I don't really have time between my partner and I having a daily life, having a day job, and doing these projects. I don't really have time to learn any other systems. So D&D was what I got into, and D&D already has this huge community and support network that exists. There's things like D&D Beyond. There are Discord servers out there full of people. There's so much actual play footage. There's so many YouTube channels out there to teach you how to play D&D and stuff like that. Don't Stop Thinking is a favorite one of mine. That's an Australian guy actually down south that has beginners how to play D&D 5e videos that are really helpful. So go check out Don't Stop Thinking if you're planning D&D. But yeah, just find out what your friends are playing first before you spend money on anything. And then if they're already playing something and are willing to teach you, try that. Because there are games out there that are simpler than D&D. A lot of people will tell you that. But those games don't have as much support. They aren't as well known. They don't have as big a community. They don't have things that do all the work for you like D&D Beyond does with dice rolling and stuff like that. So while they may be simpler games, they may be harder for you to learn if you don't have people to teach you.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's all about the way that you learn as well. Some people learn by reading,
Exactly.
some by watching, some by playing.
Exactly. But if you're neurodivergent like me and you don't have friends that already play a different system, 5th Ed is where it's at. Head to D&D Beyond, get yourself a free account. You can buy a paid account later if you decide you like it, but it will run you through making a character step by step. And then when you use that character sheet in your game, it will automatically roll the dice for you and apply all your modifiers and stuff like that, so you don't have to remember. It'll tick off your spell slots and sort out your health points and stuff like that. And again, there's this huge community. There's all the YouTube channels that'll teach you. I mean, hell, join my Discord. My friends will help teach you how to play too.
Awesome.
We're so supportive and neurodivergent, LGBT friendly, disability friendly. We've got all kinds of people from all kinds of skill levels and backgrounds for D&D in there. We love to help people, but join my Discord if you want. Find those YouTubes. Find other people whose Discords are friendly to your needs, and just talk about the game, ask questions, and of course, grab the Essentials kit or the Starter kit. They're both good. The Essentials kit does come with some handy dandy little spell cards and magic item cards and stuff like that, so it can guide you through the game even a little bit easier than the Starter kit did. But I am fond of the Starter Kit adventure. It is a fun adventure, and I was thrilled that this Essentials Kit adventure takes place in the same area.
Yeah.
Albeit 100 years later, but
yeah.
But yeah. If you don't have friends that already play a different game and can teach you, then honestly, I'll always recommend people try 5th Ed because of the digital tools and the community support that's out there. And I mean, obviously, I'm also a little bit biased in go and get yourself a player screen, because that will help you.
Absolutely. Well, like I say, it's absolutely. I think I would even say, as a player, I need it. So I'm definitely going to be signing up to the Kickstarter. But first of all, thank you ever so much for the time, for giving up your time to speak with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it's been an experience finding out all about these weird and wonderful things that are coming out from down under. So,
No worries. Thanks for having
yeah.
me. I will drop a teaser for one thing that is a reward for the Kickstarter
Oh
for
yes,
those that are
please.
listening, though. It's called The Taxonomy of the Arse Deer.
Of the what? Sorry.
The Taxonomy of the Arse Deer. And
What?
it's a
Hang on.
body horror comedy monster supplement.
Why is
You've
this
probably
ringing a
seen them
bell?
around the Twitterverse.
Why is this? Is it a deer with a ass for a face?
Yes, it is. You've seen them. You've seen them.
That just totally rang a bell. Did you share that on the Discord like over a year ago?
Yes, I did. When I first started working on them and did the first dodgy sketch that was inspired by my home D&D game. And then my partner came up with an idea for a second version of them. And then it spiraled from there and has become a whole monster module supplement with stats and paper minis and everything that has been spiraling for the last year and is coming out as part of the Kickstarter and the digital rewards.
Okay. So, well, you've just had, you probably just noticed that's completely unplanned, and I just had one of those flashbacks where I just remembered a deer with an ass for a face. So, thanks for doing that to me.
You're welcome. I bet you just guarantee you, if you hit Twitter and type in ass deer, you will see them in all their glory.
Excellent. I will do that right after I finish recording this, because obviously I want to see how the ass deer has evolved over the past
Sorry,
year.
not sorry.
Anyway, Shaun, thank you ever so much for joining us, and
Thanks for having me.
thank you. And I'm sure we'll talk soon, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the Kickstarter goes. Give me a shout when the next one comes up as well.
Will do. It's a couple of months once fulfillment's done.
Yeah. Cheers now.